Welcome to Beyond the Wish, where we delve into the power of wishes and the people who make them possible. Today's episode celebrates Social Worker Appreciation Month and will be hosted by Andrea, Medical Engagement Specialist for Make-A-Wish, Illinois. She is joined by Elaine, who is a social worker with Lurie Children's and is also a Wish alumni herself. She knows firsthand what it feels like to navigate a critical illness as a child, what a wish can bring to a family in the middle of uncertainty, and how hope can take root in the most unexpected places. And now, years later, she's on the other side of the wish journey, referring her own patients to Make-A-Wish, Illinois, and helping them access the same spark of joy and possibility that once changed her life. In our conversation, we talk about her journey from wish kid to wish maker, what she sees in her patients when a wish becomes part of their care, and why she believes so strongly in the power of hope.
We're going to talk today, and I'd like you to start by introducing yourself and tell us what you do and where you work.
Yes, my name is Elaine. I work at Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago. I am a social worker by background, but I've kind of moved through this space of Lurie's in the past almost 10 years I've been with them. I started as a community health worker and then went to school to get my master's for social work. And then I just recently transitioned into a social work care coordinator.
That's amazing. Which department are you in now?
We are called the Health Partners Care Coordination Group.
I love that group.
Yeah,
that's
do
awesome.
you?
Yes.
Well, we love to be loved.
Yes, and you do a lot of great care coordination for complex children, and that's just an incredible place for you to transition to.
Thank you. It's been rewarding work for sure. And previous to that, I was with cardiology, so lots of wishes there. Yes, and so it's been a lovely time. Almost 10 years. It's been really good.
That's fantastic. I absolutely love that. For our friends listening, the department that she's now working in really does a lot to coordinate across departments for children that have complex illness and really make sure that they're getting comprehensive and holistic care. And it's just a pleasure to work with that team, and I'm so excited that you're on there. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you because obviously you have a beautiful connection to Make-A-Wish. Would you like to share how you were first introduced to Make-A-Wish many, many years ago?
Absolutely. So when I was 7, I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And I spent about a year and a half hospitalized. I was treated at University of Chicago by an amazing, fabulous, phenomenal medical team. And soon after, when I was placed on remission, we started to have conversations about a wish. And, I think I didn't even know what it was about. I think as a child, you're just so focused on trying to be a child as much as you can. Yeah. And even when I look back on that time, there are very few memories I have, but all of them are always good memories. And Make-A-Wish is one of those memories that I keep near and dear to my heart. So when we finally were in a place where I was stable enough to consider a wish, my parents asked me what did you want to do? And I said I wanted to go back home to the Philippines. Yep.
I love when we are able to actually, grant that wish that creates those beautiful memories in that hard time. And I know it's really hard when you have to listen to your doctors and your parents and everything, and then you get to pick something. It's just so special. In your role as a social worker now, how do you stay involved with us in our wish journey?
Social work plays a really important part in this process of finding patients who are eligible for wishes, preparing them for that experience, giving education as needed, and then collaborating with different team members to make sure we make this happen for the kiddos. So I did a lot more work, I think, when I was frontline as a social worker with cardiology, because we really could meet patients and families right then and there. Typically, when I was doing heart transplant evaluations, I would put together like a packet or a binder of resources so folks could anticipate, what this journey was going to look like. And I would include a Make-A-Wish pamphlet in there so they're aware that there is something to look forward to.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're attempting to do, is we're trying to be that bright spot, that place where we can give that hope, that strength, that joy, and help that child find their resilience through getting to control something, getting to pick something. So I love that. So From your perspective as a social worker, how does our WISH journey fit into the overall care plan for a child facing critical illness?
Oh my goodness. I think it fits just right in, and it should be absolutely part of the care plan. Like, it really is. As I mentioned, I think, as a child who's personally experienced this chronic illness, we sometimes lose our identity of who we are because we just know the four walls around us, and they're very bare and cold and white walls. And we meet so many people, we have so many procedures, we have so much medication, we have so many things to think about that all that we think about is really our illness. Yeah. And same for our parents too. So I think having Make-A-Wish in a care plan as something that is placed in there almost as a placeholder, like this is something you can look forward to. I think it really helps with compliance. I think it helps with adhering to treatment. I think it instills this hope for the patient and the family that if we continue on this journey and if we work together to make this happen, then there is something that is really bright on the other side of things.
That is exactly our mission. And you've actually spoken to my next question, which is the impact that a WISH can have and the changes that you notice, the medical, the social, emotional. And you mentioned that, you see more compliance, and we have data that backs that up, that there is better compliance when the child has this amazing wish to look forward to. But are there any other medical and emotional and social benefits that you can think of?
Yeah. So outside of being a social worker at a hospital, on the side I do therapy as well for kiddos and adults. And I think things that I work on with those clients is finding your identity, especially if you're navigating medical things. And I think in seeing the emotional difference that happens when a child is reminded yes, I loved superheroes and now I can meet my superhero at the theme park. Or even when I was walking in here today, I saw that one of our WISH recipients loved trains. So then he became a train conductor. And it's just moments like that that remind children of the joy that they have. Children should be children, even when they're facing a lot of adversity. And I think having that and knowing Make-A-Wish is really the shoulders that those kids stand on for that to happen is going to be huge for their emotional journey. And as an adult, as someone who's experienced it, I know that it lingers and it stays with you forever.
That is truly the intention that we start with. Mm-hmm. That's the intention when Dina and I show up to do education about which children are eligible and about the why that really speaks to it. So again, talking a little bit more about that medical impact, have you observed any situations where a child's medical engagement or motivation improved after being introduced to the idea of the wish? And I have a feeling you're going to say yes, but can you think of, again, no names, but specific examples of when it really helped a child move forward?
Yes. So a lot of the work that I was doing with cardiology was mostly outpatient until the very end, where I kind of rotated through the inpatient floors. So I got the chance to meet with families regularly when they would come in for their heart transplant visits. And so we had a patient who was recently discharged, and they came in and it was fresh off mom's heart and mind, oh yeah, that Make-A-Wish thing, now we're in a good place. I think kiddo wasn't 2.5 quite yet, but it was something that we could consider, and they were near. So we talked about it, and she had all her babies, single mother had all her babies with her, including her child who was just discharged, and they're all in the room. And they heard us talking about it, and mom had mentioned we have a chance to, maybe we get to go to Disney World, guys. And I remember that room just erupted with joy. And even the kiddo who was still, recovering and on the mend, he showed his way of joy and communicating through hands. And I remember that moment so much because I feel like if we could see color from emotion, that room was filled with rainbows and so many different colors because they just had something finally to look forward to.
That's amazing, because you're right. It's one thing to say, okay, we're discharged, it's good, but it still feels like a long road ahead, and you're able to, provide truly a rainbow of joy. That's just absolutely fantastic. I love to hear that. How does having something positive to look forward to, like a wish, do you think supports a child's ability to cope with those long hospital stays, those treatments, that getting to the point of discharge and then still staying motivated for the follow-up and the care and all of those, treatments, procedures, things that just really tend to kind of steal that joy and that childhood?
I can only speak to my experience as a patient who was hospitalized for almost a year and a half. You start to forget what the world is like, and you start to forget what it's like to even go to school, to go to the park, to go grocery shopping with your family. My family and I immigrated here, and so I never thought it was even possible that we would ever return. And I don't know if subconsciously I was starting to lose hope in myself, because I could, children feel their disease and they know so much. And so maybe that happened for a moment. So you forget, what could the world be like if I even leave these walls? And so to be able to start to picture it when someone says to you, there's this amazing organization that does this for children and you get to choose. Of all the things, you finally get to control and choose what it is that you want to do. And then so you start to picture, okay, this is a big deal. I get to choose it. So then I was like, what is it going to look like when I go back home to the Philippines? I get to see my grandma again. And so you envision it, and it becomes really special, and then it becomes part of your dreams. And during the hard moments when you don't want to go through that surgery, or you don't want to take that medication, you don't want to get that shot, or you don't want to go do all the things, you do it anyway because you're thinking about your grandma at home.
I am the daughter of immigrants, and home is somewhere else for me too. So I really obviously relate to that. It's amazing that we are able to do this for children, and that we can do it because of people like you that remember what it did for you and say, I'm going to keep this going and I'm going to keep referring children. So I am grateful for your partnership all these years, and thank you for sharing that. Have any families or other coworkers, physicians, nurse practitioners, other social workers, have any of them talked to you about, the improvements in, a child's energy or cooperation or outlook once they begin the wish? Or have you observed it? Or have you heard from other people oh my God, little Johnny is doing so well and he's so excited about his wish, came right in, jumped in the chair and things like that? Are you guys talking about it amongst yourselves? Hey, you should refer that kid for a wish?
Well, I think the one thing that I can remember is, and funny enough, there must be a lot of kiddos that love trains, because we actually had a heart transplant patient who had his wish come true right over here in one of our lines. And we were invited as a team, and some folks can make it. It's hard at the hospital to leave a clinic or some things, but I know some folks really made the time to go to that, because they knew that child's journey was a miracle, truly, that he made a full recovery, he got his heart, and that he was going to be okay, and he got to become a train conductor. So I remember that message came out, and the team was like, we got to pull our strings, someone please figure it out, let's do it. And it was such a collaborative experience in a different way. Now we're not having all these hard conversations and how we can approach these moments with families, but now it's we get to celebrate with this child and family who we love dearly. And so they went to that, and then I recall they were coming to clinic after that, and that's all that everyone talked about, was because it was just threading through our emails. And of course we're just how was it? We all got to share some of the joy.
That's really awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. That is one of my favorite wishes of all time. There is video of it on our YouTube. Oh. It is, if you have not seen it, I will show it to you. It is the best. I love that so much. And yeah, I'm a Green Line writer, so I love that he got to do that. It was the best. It was a good one. And to be honest, we are always looking for more ways to make sure that we can share the joy, because our healthcare partners really are our partners. Mm-hmm. We can't do this without you. So we are always looking for more ways to involve you in that joy. Mm-hmm. So I am really glad that your team was able to come to that, and I will absolutely make sure you have the video to share, because it's fantastic. Thank you. For the emotional impact, though, you're talking about it, I can hear it, but how have you seen the wish experience support a child's emotional resilience? We talked a little bit about resilience and trying to reach that, but have you seen that wish experience kind of get them into that emotional resilience during those challenging parts of treatment where they don't want to do a procedure. They're tired. They don't want another stick. I get it. Have you seen, that kind of help steer and right the ship?
Yeah, I haven't seen it firsthand, mostly because my work was outpatient at the time.
Right.
When I finally got to jump into inpatient, which is like a completely different world, where everything is much more sensitive, more timely. It is life or death on those floors. And I really want to shout out our child life specialists because they were so pivotal in that work. And they're really sitting through really hard times with those kiddos. And they're a huge part of the Make-A-Wish process too. And every time they're with them, we're like, what are your interests? So they get a gauge. And then they start to build this like journey together. And then eventually when they're ready, and they're able to, we can make it a solid deal, which is like, guess what? Remember all that we were talking about? Well, we can actually make that happen. And so I learned from them actually when they would come and tell me like, so-and-so wants to be a princess and she made up a princess land and she wants to do that. And then she was discharged and she's going to Disney, which is like the ultimate wish. And so she gets to be a princess. And for that child, in her mind, that is her princess land come true.
That's fantastic. And happy Child Life and Social Work Month. They are instrumental in making our wishes come true for our children. We really, when I say healthcare partners, I mean we cannot do this without you. Mm-hmm. And I believe that I send some sort of deep gratitude expression in every email I send to you because I know that you're doing this on top of all this incredibly important work with the families and trying to, get a child into that stable place while they're fighting critical illness, and that you take the time to collaborate with us so that we can make these wishes. We truly can't do without you. So happy Child Life and Social Work Month. We love you all, and we cannot do this without you. It's really, really important. But
thank you.
Funny that you mentioned the normalcy, how you don't remember like the outside the walls. Do you think that the wish like helps restore that for kids, like that sense of normalcy and connection and belonging to the world, like because their life has just been interrupted by, critical illness? Mm-hmm. Do you think that you've seen like the wish, and personally the wish brings you kind of back into that connection, that normalcy, and that sense of belonging?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's like the magic behind it all. And it's like, I think it's a lesson for all of us that if we have hope in something, if we have, one thing that I live by, or something that I've always found happiness in, is that there's 3 components to our happiness, which is something to do, someone to love, and something to look forward to. And Make-A-Wish really holds all of those values in some way, or it encourages us to look into those values. Of course, having something to look forward to is being the number one thing. And so I do think that you start to go away from this feeling of like, oh, I'm just a kid with cancer, to now I'm a kid with hope, or I'm a kid who can go see her grandma in the Philippines, or I'm a kid who can have her favorite meal back home where she belongs. And it starts to help you feel like, oh, I'm also a person. I'm a human being. I'm not just another patient with a little wrist strap and my name and date of birth on it. It feels like that, and it feels like that for a long time until amazing people like you guys come around.
So yeah, it really helps them kind of rebuild their sense of identity.
Correct.
And I think that's really important. And I think you're absolutely right to call out that bracelet kind of becomes who you are. Yeah. And there's so much more. Mm-hmm. These are children who, have their whole future ahead of them, and that's what you're trying to get them to, and we're trying to get them excited about that. So I think that's a really nice way that we can collaborate and partner is, mm-hmm. You're trying to get them healthy, we're trying to get them happy, and those two things go together. Questions about the ripple effects. You can kind of see how it affects, like you talked a little bit about how the team get really excited when they hear about a great wish and the family erupting into rainbows of joys. So it kind of, makes me want to ask the question, like, do you see the ripple effect on the family and the care teams when we are able to grant a wish? Like, does it kind of, help spread the joy beyond just the day of the wish?
Yes, and yes. I will say as a provider and even as an alum, We like face this compassion fatigue, I think, because we are dealing with some of the highest acuity of patients and experiences. And I guess there's a part of us as humans where we find a way to store that sensitivity and sadness and woe in a place so that we can make logical decisions, so we can best support a patient and best support a family. But that fatigue really starts to weigh on us. And I think seeing a child be eligible for a wish, or know that a child has a wish coming up, or even to see that child come into fruition with their wish, it like restores something in all of us, the care team, the child, and the family. It helps us understand the positivity of our work and the impact of our work, that like this is why we do it for. We forget sometimes that we go into this work because we want to be healers, because everything else falls in between. But then we're reminded like, oh, this is why I went to school for this. This is why I'm here day in and day out to support these patients and families. You guys are really the ones reminding us and restoring that faith in us that we could do this for more kids.
That makes me really happy, because it's really important to me to be that bright spot in your day because of that compassion fatigue, and because people are dealing with, the unimaginable. They have a child who needs a heart transplant, or a child who's had a cancer diagnosis. And so I think that it weighs heavy on everyone, and including the child. And it's nice to cut through the fog and remind people that there's something to look forward to, and you are part of that. And you are part of that joy, and joy is contagious. So we want to spread more joy. Do you see that those families that are starting to get that joy back, excited about the wish, do you see them having a different relationship with your team, like being more open and being, more receptive and being more positive about where things are headed? Are they able to kind of, improve and make a positive impact on that relationship?
Yes. I think a lot of trust has to be built, and some families dependent on, their experiences, even a parent's childhood experience, and their distrust for providers or medical teams or the world in general. It can be really hard to form that relationship. And so sometimes it's hard in the beginning, and it's especially hard during the times when we have to share bad news, because we're meeting families at their most vulnerable times, and they're going to be emotional, and they're going to say things that they don't want to say or that they don't mean. We find ways to resolve those things and to come together always. Make-A-Wish is like my favorite kind of conversations to have, because then we realize, you remember all those hard talks that we had, and all those times we came back together and we had our sorries, and we learned ways we could communicate with each other. Finally we have a conversation now where we can enjoy this. And I think for those families, it reminds them, or it might even instill this different faith in life, that we can trust these people. Not everyone in this world is going to hurt us, even though those experiences have said that for them in the past. But there are good people here that care about us, that care about my child and our family, and that they bring us together so we can experience a once-in-a-lifetime event.
I hope that is good for your morale, because just hearing that is good for mine. I hope that the staff has that kind of, improvement in morale when there's a kiddo that comes in and says, I'm going on my wish next week. Yeah. And I really hope that joy and that impact is, boosting your morale as much as it boosts mine. When you talk to families about a wish, how are you doing it to kind of get them to feel that hopeful, empowered joy to move forward and take the leap? How do you broach that? And I know you bring a pamphlet in, you mentioned that a little bit earlier, but how are you really kind of those families that are on the fence, how are you helping them, get on board?
Yeah, I luckily I haven't had to run into a lot of those families where they aren't so sure. I think some families are more decisive about timing because of the age, or maybe siblings' age, or things like that. So we always provide some education around what that looks like and how eligibility continues to look like, so that they're aware and they can plan ahead, and doing those gentle nudges of, there is never going to be a perfect time. But I trust that when that time is right for you guys, we're here for you to make that happen. And most providers that I've ever worked with have been so awesome and just oh yeah, we're going to make this happen. But yes, the way that I, frame it for families is, as huge and incredibly well known as Make-A-Wish is, some families really don't know about it. And I have to approach every scenario as if no family knows about it, because as a social worker, we have to give education, psychoeducation, and information on resources, and connecting them with those resources is huge. So yes, I include it in my pamphlet. I always make sure that it's something that they see right away, and information about what the process looks like, how to get referred. Even after those conversations, if families are still like, maybe I'll wait on it, I'll think about it a little bit, we'll do a check-in, and it's something that I have on my list to check in about. I have a family still, they transitioned over to me, who has kind of been in some housing instability, and they so badly want to be able to see their wish through. But I think until they have that in place, we will see when that is ready. But I think even in moments like that, like, families know that in hard times too in life outside of the hospital, that this is something their kiddo can still look forward to at some point in time. And so that's just like a mental note for me as a provider and as a clinician, to continue to utilize these joyful experiences, so that we make sure that these kids and these families have something that feels good in their heart and their mind and body.
And I think that really speaks to how much our families go through. It's not just the medical journey. They still have life to deal with, and that's really important. But the good news is that we will still be here. I think we can both agree that the wish journey is a meaningful part of the child's medical journey. Can you talk about why we believe that it's a meaningful part? Like, I often hear it talked about as like, part of the treatment plan, because it's helping to heal, give them that resilience, that joy, and kind of healing the inner child. How do you believe that this is, the meaningful part of the journey?
That is a great question. And I think I can only answer that as really speaking to my personal experience. And I would say that it almost felt like, in some ways, a reward for the hard work. And the hard work was surviving cancer and beating it. And, I think Make-A-Wish really was like a closure in some way for me, to know that chapter had ended, and it ended with a positive note. Even though the beginning was non-linear and very scary and written in bold and black letters, it became much more lively towards the end. And I got to write that story because you guys let me choose. And so it's meaningful in that way. I think that it adds closure to an experience. I think it brings families closer to one another, because they're no longer stressed about how they're going to make things work financially, how they're going to pay those bills, how they're going to bring joy back into their child's life. You guys make that so much easier on folks. I can speak to my family's experience on that. We literally just immigrated here when I got my diagnosis, so we had nothing. And I barely knew the language. And I experienced that with my mom, my dad, and my dad had to spend many hours and days away from my bedside because we needed to find ways to pay for the things. My mom was a doctor in the Philippines and came here and stopped pursuing that completely to just be my mom. And she never regrets that, by the way. So, but you can imagine the kind of conflict that may have created in families, and the strain that it creates in families, because everyone is just trying to survive. I'm trying to survive cancer or beat my cancer. My parents are trying to survive life and keep things afloat. So that Make-A-Wish, me choosing to go back home, it was so awesome because we got to experience our homeland in a way that was different. Even though we were from there, I actually got to go to Boracay, which is this beautiful island in the Philippines. And this is before it was touristy like it is now. It was just land. And I have videos. I have of my mom taking pictures of me and my dad taking videos of us. And it was just us for a moment. And finally, it wasn't the beeping of my heart rate. It wasn't someone knocking in and saying, I have to share some news with you of your results. It wasn't vomiting or side effects or whatever it is. It was just us at home. And it was the foundation for how we would continue to live after. And we have a beautiful life now. Very grateful to see it.
Me too. That is something that, I understand that that's a huge burden for a family to look forward to something on top of medical bills and everything else that's going on. So that is that is something that is really nice to be able to know that we are giving the whole family and this child something to look forward to, and a way to bond together in a joyful, hopeful way instead of another way. So obviously, if I asked you like what one wish still stays with you because of the impact, I know that you're going to say that it's your wish. But instead, would you want to share a moment or a story that you feel the wish experience truly changed the trajectory of a child's, illness, attitude, how things were in the hospital? Obviously, we don't want you to violate patient privacy, but is there one that just really sticks with you where you saw a kiddo that was struggling and then that wish really got them on the right track?
Yeah, this one family is near and dear to my heart in heart transplant. And this is a family that is blended in different ways. So this kiddo, there was DCFS involvement, and they were taken from their biological parents, and their aunt, rose to the occasion with the little resources that she had. She decided, I'm going to take care of all 3 kids. She's young. So it took a lot of courage and bravery, but I think she saw the importance of her continuing to stay in this child's life versus not knowing where they were headed. And so, but they struggled, for sure. They struggled, and they didn't have a lot of resources to fall back on. And when times got tough, they got really, really tough. And sometimes we would see them in visits, and there'd be different issues like behavioral issues just because of the experiences that low-income children face in the community, and also just like the natural trajectory of what happens with children who have cardiovascular disease and the heightened anxiety and depression. And there were really rough patches for this family. And I think at some point, this parent, who was her mother, aunt, but mother for sure, had shared, like, I don't know if I could do this anymore, Elaine. Like, I feel like all that we face is like a hardship. Like, it's always just been hard ever since she's left. It's just stayed hard for us. We don't know what we're going to eat next sometimes. We don't know if we have enough to do that. And we don't know if we can get new clothes. And we're like, I was like, well, whatever happened to your Make-A-Wish? And she was like, well, that, I forgot about that. Like, it was just so busy for us. We were in and out of hospitals or dealing with, with foster stuff. And we were dealing with DCFS and just getting those things aligned. Like, I totally forgot about that. And then for a moment in time, finally, I could see like this like light come to her face, and she didn't pause for a second. I think she just wanted to share that moment right away with the patient. Typically some parents are like, let's think about it, but I think it was just so illuminating for her. Like, in that moment she was like, oh my gosh, we get to go to Disney like you wanted. Like, and the patient was reminded too, like, I remember that we were talking about that. That lingers for me because, coming from Chicago, working with families who are marginalized and vulnerable, the non-nuclear family, they have a lot of things that they navigate. And again, like that other story I shared with you, so many spaces where we could see color and rainbows. That moment was like fireworks because I was like, we can finally have something that we can work towards that isn't going to be so tough. So that will always stay with me as a social worker, and that family will always be with me. I might be 80 years old if I get to see it and still think about them in moments like that.
And that is why we do it. That is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing that. We are also doing a lot of work to make sure that we are sensitive to, social risk factors and social determinants of health, because we serve the whole state of Illinois, and that means we serve so many different families, and families can look like anything. Mm-hmm. And I've also gotten the call where it's like, wow, we have an interesting family dynamic. And I said, trust me, we've seen it and it's fine. We can work with it. So I'm very, very glad to hear that that's one of the families that we were able to help with your help. So we talked about some of the misconceptions about Make-A-Wish, because you're right, we're known but not known. And that's one of the things that, my team is always out trying to get the word out about, who is medically eligible and what we can do. Mm-hmm. If you could tell the world one thing about how a wish transforms outcomes for children with critical illness, what would you tell them?
I would say that a wish gives a child and a family a reason to keep going. And I lived through that myself, and I have the honor of walking side by side with patients and families now, and I can attest that it 100% always is. I know there's a lot of science and data that already backs this, but the human experience of seeing that happen in real time, I can say positively, if I could bet anything on, is that Make-A-Wish makes a complete difference, a huge difference for the child, and that child becomes an adult one day. And they find joy in the work that they do because of it.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us and sharing your wish story and your professional life in which you carry on the legacy of Make-A-Wish with you. We are so grateful for you and your partnership.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode. Elaine's story is such a powerful reminder of what happens when a wish doesn't just touch a life, it shapes a future. From experiencing the hope of a wish as a child to now helping her own patients find that same light, her journey shows just how far the impact of one act of generosity can reach. We are so grateful to her for sharing her heart, her perspective, and her passion for making sure every eligible child has access to the joy and possibility that a wish can bring. If Elaine's story inspired you, we encourage you to learn more, get involved, and help spread our mission. Every referral, every conversation, every act of generosity helps create more moments of hope for families who truly need them. Thank you for joining us today, and until next time, best wishes.